So the next thing out in the ring was Kenny and the Buckaroos. And they ruined Kansas. And then they get in the ring. Here's not only the EVPs, but their top main event wrestlers, and they look more bummish or bummified or reeking of bummery than the other three did when they got in the ring. Sloppy street clothes, shorts, tennis shoes, no socks, hole in the pants. And Twinkle Toes speaks, and the whole arena goes to sleep, even though he's trying to be serious. I know, but there's no fire, there's no oomph there, there's no passion. He doesn't believe. Maybe he doesn't have a personality. I've heard that may be the case, but there's no charisma in him when he speaks. But he talked about all the things that the BBC had done to, him and the Buckaroos. And then Bryan Danielson suddenly appears on the screen calling them all amateurs. And while they're looking at him on the screen calling them amateurs, the rest of the BBC jump in on the EVPs from behind, and they have a big fight in the ringside, and in the arena. They do everything that the girls just did 15 minutes beforehand. But this went on for much longer. And I mean, it's every indie wrestler's wet dream to be involved in something like this, where it's actually on TV and people can see it, where they're doing all kinds of cool brawling that looks like shit when you focus. It's a lot of meaningless sound and motion, but if you focus on any one single thing that's being done instead of the whole picture, it all looks like shit, makes no sense. At one point, Wheeler Useless took a Northern Lights suplex on the floor and was up throwing punches seconds later. And Moxley would go down for things, but he'd come right back up. It's not like he sold anything.
I sell nothing. I'm invincible.
And then as the BBC is, finally is in firm control, Danielson comes out with the microphone and cuts a promo on him, or starts cutting a promo on him. I told you were amateurs. Well, here comes Don Fallis down the entry ramp holding a chair, and he gets halfway down the ramp, looks at the scene, gets scared, drops the chair, and runs back to the back. So then the BBC isolate Twinkle Toes. I guess the Maddie and Nikki were thrown to the floor or whatever. And Danielson pulls out a screwdriver, and it's that they're going to hold Twinkle Toes while we are expected to believe that Bryan Danielson is going to stab him with a screwdriver. But then suddenly here comes Don Fallis again with Take a Shit. And he sends Take a Shit to the ring to help out. Where's Hangnail Page? Hold that thought. And Take a Shit jumps in the ring and clears the ring of everybody all by himself. Bryan bails out on his own. But everybody else gets sent out by this one guy. And isn't that the Hangnail Page spot? Or is there trouble over in dipshit Cowboyville, Virginia?
You would think that's the Hangman Page spot. Again, he got beat up by these Blackpool folks, and they have been, for a while, from what I understand, teasing things with Don Callis and Takeshita on various programs that they produce, so it's not outrageous that he went back and got him.
Well, the whole thing was outrageous.
Someone has to do the job.
Somebody's got to get dirty.
Moxley has become one of my favorites. Can I just say that?
Oh, come on.
If you go into it watching it knowing this guy's the worst fucking wrestler in the world, he's quite enjoyable to watch. You know he's going to fall down at least once. You know he's going to start throwing punches that don't hit or elbows that just look bad, but he's going to like grimace like he's really doing something. I've started to enjoy the awfulness in his wrestling. And the whole Blackpool Combat Club is just so ridiculous. And then Danielson now is like the leader of the whole thing. I get a kick out of that. I did want to ask you one other thing about this, though. The fact that they're doing this feud and the way they're doing it so far between Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite, it would almost be, for all the talk about doing FTR and CM Punk versus the Elite after this, kind of feels like they're blowing out the big program for the factions right now. Like, it would almost be bad to do something like that right after this, right?
Oh, you mean it would be bad to follow up this with
that program.
FTR and Punk versus... No, you always want to try to build and get bigger as you go along. Look, regardless of what they do between the BBC and the Elite, it will appeal to they're preaching to the choir, as Jim Ross and many other Southern individuals would say. It will appeal to the people that are already going to watch it or buy it to begin with. The reason why that the natural match is the Elite versus Punk and FTR is simply because it's something that even not only will the smart AEW fans believe that there could be something legitimate about it, because there is and was, but also it's intriguing enough to get the people that came with Punk to come back, to get the people that might watch television but not buy a big pay-per-view to fucking do so, because there's something extra to it. It's got its own built-in attraction. It's not just going to be aggressive parkour with bad indie wrestling and hardcore shit mixed in. So the idea that you wouldn't, if you could put, and the reason why FTR have been grouped in this, and now apparently the AEW fans are mad at some of them because they're on his side. Well, no shit. They're on the side of the big star that actually does good wrestling, because they take pride in their wrestling. Imagine that. But they're friends, and people know that too. And even if there is not legitimate heat that we know of between FTR and the Buckaroos, people can believe there could be, because there's obviously at least professional jealousy on one part we know of for sure. So that's the reason why that's your biggest match, instead of this convoluted indie wrestling style bullshit that they're doing with the BBC and the Buckaroos and Twinkle Toes. That's for the people that are already there. That's fine. I'm sure they'll love it. But that doesn't mean you can't do something bigger that appeals to more people for more obvious reasons, involving better talent that will give a better performance and build the thing better because they're more serious about it. So it would be an upgrade, yes.
Men and women on both programs, and as we just talked about on Raw, too many factions, faction warfare everywhere.
Well, that's another thing. As much of a dearth of really top-level star power, main event singles attractions that they have in this company to begin with, and they've got Danielson mixed up in this jobber stew, and as well as, they want to tie Kenny and Maddie and Nikki up, because that way they get to play with their friends and they get to work together and they get the cool Kansas entrance music, and at least it's putting them in one match where, we don't have to fucking skip 2 or 3 different matches. So that's fine. They've lived their usefulness in that company as box office draws to begin with, in my opinion, except for potential Punk and FTR contest. But they're hiding Danielson in this mess, and Claudio never got a chance to really do anything. He's a great worker. He's not going to be the next Stone Cold Steve Austin. But goddamn, he just got thrown into this. Now he's mired down in the middle of it.
Yeah, he's done. But listen, you brought up Kansas. I haven't asked you about this. The idea they're using this as their theme song and Tony's paying for it. The visual of when the song first hits and they're on the stage in a silhouette, and then the song gets really big, and all of a sudden we see them, that works. Then they come to the ring. Then they get in the ring. The song is still going. And they're like waiting for the next round of the chorus. And so's the audience, because the audience is silent while the Young Bucks are walking around singing the song to themselves. And then the audience gets ready for the big chorus of what you may remember was a big hit song, had nothing to do with wrestling. So what is Tony really paying for here? Just the moment of them on the stage? Because there's too much of them singing the song to themselves while the crowd sits there. It happened here, but I've seen it before, too. That's what made me think about it.
What he's paying for is, somebody to go through and pick out the brown M&Ms. Their self-indulgent fantasies now that they've found a sucker that will suffer their presence.
Would Tony Khan license the Beatles for a wrestler?
Well, what song? For who? It would have to fit really good, wouldn't it? Like if they said, "Hey, Tony, this would fit me really good." He'd have to have his arm twisted like that. I mean, I would think at some point, they draw the line somewhere.
He licensed the Trogs for 1 week. Remember that?
Yes. Instead of signing the wrong one-legged wrestler, he licensed the wrong fucking cover of the song.
Yeah.
But then he's given. The thing is, it has to be his pet or somebody that he, I guess, is scared by. Because Moxley probably intimidates him. I can see Tony being the only person on earth that Moxley could legitimately intimidate.
That's right. It's like the movie Cobra. I'm half Sylvester Stallone, half badass, half Cobra.
But then again, Tony gave his favorite little mascot 2 different songs that he had to license.
Yeah.
So he only does it for people he either is, in love with or is scared of. So somebody ought to intimidate him into some fucking Skinnerd so we'd have something to listen to.